Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wealth Wednesday with North Arundel County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am Laura Gregory, again, the Economic Development Committee Chair, and I welcome you on behalf of our President, Tally Red. Thank you for joining us again. Tonight, we are talking about planning for your future self, and it's all about the mindset. We're so happy that you came back because, again, we're on a journey, as our theme is Journey to Financial Freedom, mapping the path to build wealth. And for some of you who haven't joined us for some of our previous workshops, we started off with profit and getting the money and entrepreneurship. And then we went down the line of how we need to save and budget that money. But now we really need to dive deeper into how do we view money, right? We're talking about that money mindset, and we want you to join us here tonight and stay focused, grab your pens, your notepads, and take notes because we have a live panel of experts who are going to walk us into how do we adjust our mindset if we're not already there, and how we have a holistic approach about manifesting it for the future. So before we get started and before I pass it on to my committee chair, I'd like for everyone to govern yourselves accordingly, as we have an ERT note that we would like for you to stay tuned and govern yourselves accordingly and read for about 30 seconds. Thank you so much. Now we will go ahead and get started with Michelle Fuller into what we have planned for you this evening. Michelle.
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Fuller, and I am co-chair of the Economic Development Committee and co-facilitator tonight with Chandra Parks. And we're really excited to have you here tonight and to revisit this topic that we literally talked about 1 year ago today. And we talked about it from the perspective of planning for your future self. And so we've kept that theme, but we're going to talk about it today with a little bit of a different twist. So the way I want to start tonight is just to kind of level set in terms of what does mindset mean? And mindset essentially is a series of self-perceptions or belief that people hold about themselves. And then those thoughts and perceptions determine behavior. It determines your outlook and your mental attitude. So again, if you have a positive perception, if you are driven to setting goals and for yourself and how you're going to go about doing that, that's basically what mindset is. It's about the actions the self-perceptions and the action steps that you're going to take to reach your goals. Next slide, please. So as I was preparing tonight for our discussion, I happened upon a book that I actually already had in my little library about mindset, written by Carol Dweck, PhD. And one of the things, so I pulled up the book and I started looking at it again, revisiting it. And the thing that's really interesting about this book is that Carol, or Dr. Carol, talks about two different types of mindsets. Growth mindset and fixed mindset. And I thought it would be worth talking about that just for a few minutes, and because it's really interesting. When you think about growth mindset, it's really based on the belief that your basic qualities are the things that you can cultivate through your efforts. So in other words, while you may not have had exposure to certain things or experience doing certain things, that if you believe that you can do it, and you put action steps in place to cultivate whatever that is, that you can do it. So when you think about someone, we have a lot of examples in our day-to-day life, whether they're personal people who we know or ourselves, or people like Oprah Winfrey. And I thought about her with the growth mindset because she's someone who grew up, poor in Mississippi and then moved up north, didn't have a lot of exposure, but she always believed, I heard her say in an interview recently, that she was the smartest one in the room. And she put action steps in place, and look at her now. Where she is now was not something that she learned from a family member. She wasn't exposed to the things that she is exposed to now, and the wealth and the success that she created, but she always believed that she could. Another element of the growth mindset is that the people who have that mindset believe that they can grow and change by applying, as I mentioned before, actions and by exposure through experiences. They thrive when they're stretching themselves, and they really embrace challenges and learning. And as the figure says, so these are a couple of attitudes of the growth mindset. The failure is an opportunity to grow. It doesn't mean that you are a failure. It just means that it's an opportunity to grow. Challenges help me grow. So they don't run from challenges, and they like to try new things. The opposite of that is the fixed mindset. So fixed mindset is the belief that your qualities are engraved in stone and you basically can't evolve. They play it safe. They focus on things that enable them to excel only. And if it's not something that's going to enable them to excel or look good, then they shy away from it. Also, they're super sensitive about making mistakes or being labeled as wrong. And so in the photo, you see that a couple additional qualities or thought patterns around that is, failure limits my abilities. They don't see it as a growth opportunity. They see it as a limitation. Also, I'm either good at something or I'm not. They don't subscribe to the ability to learn something new if it's not their strength. They're not focused on stretching themselves so that they can take things to another level or reach new goals. When they're frustrated, they give up. And they basically stick to what they know. So the question that I want you to ask yourself as we move through tonight is, which one are you? Do you have a fixed mindset, or do you have a growth mindset? And if you have a fixed mindset, is there an opportunity to revisit that and change your thinking? Okay, so now, without further ado, I am going to introduce our next speaker, our first speaker, actually. And she is actually our chaplain, North Arundel County chaplain. And she is a woman of many skills, many talents. And so I'm going to read you her bio because it is quite impressive. Dr. Vicki Johnson is a transformational speaker, chaplain, spiritual wellness practitioner, best-selling author of 12 books, and founder of Soul Wealth LLC. Her most recent book, Soul Wealth: Finding Vision, Compassion, Authenticity, Abundance, and Legacy in the Midst of Chaos, was released in August 2019. She supports women leaders via her Soul Wealth Academy. Her mission is to guide women to manifest abundance in every area of their life, to build their own tribes, grow their own businesses or careers, and create the life they truly desire. She believes in that every moment we live at choice. A graduate of Howard University, Dr. Johnson mentors women to break up with the status quo in their lives, to be great in the mirror first, then amazing in the marketplace. Her daily podcast, the Soul Wealth Radio Show, is available on all podcast platforms. The show can also be heard live each day at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on dcradio.gov. And if you've never tuned in, I encourage you to do it. It is quite amazing and inspiring. I added that wasn't in her bio. Her mission and passion is to strengthen relationships among women by sharing life strategies for next levels. With over 35 years experience in the entertainment industry, she is an Emmy award-winning media professional who worked at BET Networks for over 18 years. She currently serves in the Mayor's Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment for the District of Columbia on the film team and other special projects. Dr. Johnson is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated, National Association of Black Female Executives in Music and Entertainment, and the Women's Speakers Association. She enjoys hiking, swimming, spending time with family and friends, and working on her family's historic preservation project. And on a personal note, she is my line sister. We pledged together at Alpha Chapter 30 something years ago. And as 19-year-old sophomores, so we were young. So I've known Dr. Vicky my entire adult life, and she was in the back with me, close to the back. And she's near and dear to my heart. So welcome, Line Sister. So happy to have you here. And I'm going to turn it over to you to share some nuggets like you always do.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I am so excited to be here. Thank you to our amazing NACAC chapter for this opportunity just to share some nuggets around mindset. And I know I want to stay on time because we have some other amazing panelists tonight. And I just want to jump right in and just share that it all starts with mindset. So I came to Howard University on a basketball scholarship. So I had a certain mindset, around discipline, around investing in my ability and my capacity. That talent and those gifts and those skills transferred with me into my adult life, as it related to being able to stick to something. But in full transparency, and I'm just going to really share my story tonight, I was never taught about money. I did not grow up in that kind of family. When I wanted something, I went to my dad, he gave it to me. So yeah, I'm a daddy's girl and spoiled and all of those things. However, it did lead to some, what I'm going to say, deficiencies around mindset and money, because I got married really young, shortly after graduating from college, and I married someone who also was never taught about money. So, it was a mess, in full transparency. So throughout my 14-year marriage, which did end in divorce, and I'm not promoting divorce, I'm kind of working through my story really quickly. During the course of our marriage, I went through bankruptcy, foreclosure, had a car repossessed, all of the things that happen when you're not taught. And as Michelle said, we pledged back in 1985, years ago, pre-social media. So there was not the same access to information. That is one of the gifts and blessings of being a part of this conversation tonight and this whole journey to economic empowerment is we are without excuse at this point, right? You can go on the internet, you can Google, you can go to YouTube University, you can join us on Wednesday nights. You have access to information. Back then, I did not have that. So I literally had to walk out, getting up from the bottom and rebuilding my life from the bottom. And that is the place of my passion. That is the seed and root of my passion, and why I'm so committed to helping other women. Most of the women that I mentor and serve are in a midlife breakdown somehow, whether it's emotional, financial, a combination of all of those things. And so because I had to walk it out, I know this firsthand and the importance and the power of the information that you're getting tonight. Information is power, but information that you apply and implement and execute is the ultimate power. And that is why mindset is so important. Proverbs 23:7 says, as a man or woman thinks in his or her heart, so goes their behavior. So I was thinking that if I wanted something, just call my dad. But eventually that kind of ran out, not because he's not available to me, he still is, but I needed to understand, how can I get what other people have? Not necessarily the assets, but how can I accumulate those things? So I have 8 steps that I want to share with you if you're taking notes around mindset that we're going to build upon tonight. The first thing is, it took courage for me to admit that I didn't know. And that is the first start. That is the starting point. You have to have courage to say, you know what? I want to understand how money works. Money is a tool. Money is energy. We attract into our lives what we're ready for. We attract what we reflect. And so my belief was that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy. I could not have it. I did not have the capacity. Just what Michelle opened up with tonight, the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. You hear people share their story and they say, we were poor, but I didn't know we were poor because we always had food and we always, had some place to stay and we went on vacation every now and then. But the truth is, back in the day, generations ago, community is what was so powerful. So it takes courage to admit that you need more information, that you need assistance, that you need support. Number two, it takes courage to make different choices. Every moment we live at choice. And so if something was not working before, make a different choice. Tonight, you get to make different choices. You made a choice to be here. That took courage, because I'm sure you could be doing something else. You could be watching something on television or whatever it is you do on Wednesday nights, but it took courage for you to show up for yourself tonight and make the choice to be here. Number three, making the choice to be here lends you access to a community, a competent community at that. And as you surround yourself with competent people in community where they're having these types of conversations, and yes, I'm alliterating tonight so that you can really follow, but being around competent community and having courageous conversation, you know what that does? It builds your confidence. It builds up your confidence. One of the things that I did after my life literally fell apart, because that's what happened. Everything just fell apart. I was on rock bottom. What do? I started reading. I started reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Millionaire Mindset, The Millionaire Next Door, the 80-20 principle. I started kind of stalking online and in bookstores people who understood how money worked. And that is what you want to do. We have access to so much information, and you don't want to overwhelm yourself. One of the things when it comes to mindset, one of my beliefs was that I couldn't save money. I didn't know how to save money. In full transparency, I was like, everything I got, I spent, because I was about instant gratification. If I wanted something, I did it. And then I would just wait until I got paid. And so I went from living from paycheck to paycheck to Monday to paycheck to later that day. It was like, I'll just wait until the next paycheck. But that was just not a healthy way of being. And so we're talking about this journey to financial freedom, right? That is the ultimate goal. It is about freedom. So it takes courage to make different choices so that you can be around community that is competent and have courageous conversations, which is going to build your confidence. The Bible says to us, in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. And so what goes in is what comes out. I started filling my mind with empowering information, listening to those who I admired, who knew more than I did. I put myself around circles of people who knew more than I did about money, and I started listening. And I had the courage to start making choices, different choices, so that I could change my life. My last point, before I give it back to Michelle, is I had to make a commitment. And what does commitment look like? Commitment looks like consistency. So I shared earlier that I didn't know what it took to be able to save money. And I can remember sitting with my infant daughter at the time. Now add to a broke mindset, because that's really what I had, a broke mindset, but it looked good. I knew how to show up and play with pain. I knew how to show up even if I was broken or hurting or bandaged up, because like I said, I had been playing basketball at that point for about 15 years. So I knew how to show up at the game and in the game, even if I was hurting. And I remember just being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I said, I don't want to be like this anymore. And I prayed and I said, God, just give me wisdom. Give me wisdom. I wasn't at the point of courage yet where I was willing to expose myself like I do now. I said, just give me wisdom. And God led me to get a water bottle. You know, those big water bottles, those big water jugs. I had a water bottle and I started saving my spare change. So at the end of every day, I would just dump my change in this water bottle. And I was committed to it. I did it every day for 2 years. And at the end of those 2 years, you know, I was able to convert that, what I had been saving, my spare change, into a down payment on my first home. Like, that's how much change I was dropping in. And you know what it did? It elevated my belief. And in elevating my belief, it elevated my confidence. It fortified my courage. You know, I was just being consistent and committed to being a different way and being willing to have these kinds of conversations and share my story. Because listen, being in the entertainment industry, what I can tell you for sure is do not compare yourself to what you see on social media and on television, because most of it is not real, is rented, is leased, right? And I have many, many stories of people who show up fabulous on award shows, but they go home to someone else's house because they're homeless, because they have not had the opportunity to learn how to manage money, how to grow, build, and nurture their financial freedom. And that is why we're here tonight. So again, I just want to go through again, you have to have courage to make different choices. Put yourself in circles and communities of competent people who can allow you to listen to these courageous conversations, wise counsel. In the multitude of counsel, there is safety. And then you'll begin to make these life-changing, transforming connections that will help you be committed and consistent to change. As long as you're alive, there's hope. As long as you have hope, you can always, always make a different choice and live a better life. I hope this was helpful. I hope it was inspiring and motivating, but sometimes it's just you, you, and you. And that is the counsel that has to make these different choices to change your life and continue the journey to financial freedom. I'm gonna stop.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for your transparency and your honesty, because very few people have the courage to do that. So I applaud you for that. But I want to ask you a couple questions, because I'm so interested in the, you know, that your water bottle moment. And it sounds like that was the first step that you took towards making the shift. So you said it was a 2-year process in terms of, you know, putting the money in that bottle. So what was going through your mind during those 2 years when you were putting those coins in there? Did you ever get discouraged? Like, what kept you moving forward? I know you prayed, as you always do. Yeah.
At that point, I had an infant daughter. Now, mind you, my challenges were compounded because I was dealing with postpartum depression at the same time, right? And getting ready to go through a divorce. So I knew that if my life was going to change, it had to start with me. So I was committed to my process because I knew that it wouldn't be like that always. And, you know, I wasn't a scholarship bound championship athlete immediately. I just started applying those same principles. You know, I was practicing every day for hours. So I was committed every day to dropping that change in that water bottle. And as I saw it filling up, I was like, oh, I can do this. It started here. It started here. And then I started making larger contributions at the time to my 401k. Like, I was like, I can do this, right? It's like you continue to build small victories, give you the capacity to win again on another level. And you just continue to grow incrementally, celebrate the small victories. Celebrate if you have $10 left at the end of the month, when before you had nothing, right? As soon as you got paid. So celebrate the small victories as you are shifting your mindset, because you didn't just wake up like this. How we think has taken years to become this way, which is why consistency and commitment is so important.
So after, and I love, this is just amazing. And it's true, because I'm a witness to that as well, that when you make those little steps, that a lot of people think that they have to do all or nothing. So either they're contributing half their check or nothing. And so I love that idea of making small steps that add up and build your confidence. And then you mentioned that you bought your house, you were able to put a down payment on a house. When did you finally feel like you were in a good place? And what was sort of the next step after some of those initial small steps?
I felt like I was in a good place when I heard one of my money mentors say, money doesn't solve a money problem. Because if you have a broke mindset with a little bit of money,
that's right.
You're going to have a broke belief set mindset with a lot of money. So that's why you have lottery winners who win millions of dollars, and then years later they're broke. So when I was able to start making intentional decisions, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put this over here, and I'm going to let it sit, and I'm going to delay gratification. I'm not going to go on this vacation. I'm going to wait for large purchases. I'm going to save money and make strategic decisions. And I'm going to get an advisor, someone who's going to say, yeah, Vicki, no. Because sometimes we avoid accountability because we don't want to be what we would consider restricted. But the truth is, in the multitude of counsel, there is safety. And so if I knew that if I wanted to have a certain kind of lifestyle, and I'm not talking about being ostentatious, and if that is your thing, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment, but I'm a simple girl. I really am. It is about financial freedom. Financial freedom to me is being able to do what I want, when I want, how I want, being able to sow and impart and give and invest and do all these things, right? It really is about being pliable and able to do the things you want to do. So I knew that when ownership became a priority for me, when now I'm going to start a business, and then everything that came to my mind, I'm going to implement in my life. And your imagination is for you to image nations. That's why you have an imagination. That's what vision is about. Then I started having vision. I want to do this, I want to do that, because the motivation was coming from inside of me and not me comparing myself to what I saw and trying to compete with that. Comparison really is the thief of confidence. It really is. Yes. So it's about asking God to give you a vision for your life, and then the wisdom to execute it. If you don't know, just ask and show up on Wednesday nights to this journey. Yes. Freedom, so you can continue to get information that you can build upon.
My last question is, and because I could sit here with you all night, and you and I've had this conversation a couple times, actually. So, but you mentioned that you sought out a financial advisor or an advisor. What other type of support did you put in place or did you seek to help you kind of stay on task a bit beyond your own fortitude, your own mental fortitude to do that? Were there any other support systems that you engaged to help you along the way?
You know what, Michelle, honestly, I started reading, because I did not have what I perceive. I had made a lot of assumptions, right? And so knowledge, information, and wisdom obliterates assumptions. I was making a lot of assumptions, thinking that I needed to have a lot of money to learn about money, but that wasn't the truth. Like, I didn't even know how to invest. I didn't even know it was accessible to me. So as I started reading, and reading articles and, just really observing, like, if you find someone who is doing something great or doing what you want to do, now we have the internet. Just stalk them online, right? Like, what did you do? And what is the backstory? How did you get here? What are some of your lessons? What are some of your failures? What are some of your mistakes? And it is in that place where the wisdom comes from. And the last thing I'll say is you can't be afraid to take risks.
That's right.
Right? You
Absolutely.
can't be afraid to take risks. So I just started hanging around, y'all in transparency who don't know, I just started hanging around all of my wealthy line sisters, like Michelle, like just stalking her, like, girl, what are you doing? How do you, asking questions and not being ashamed or afraid to reveal what you don't know. It's the questions you don't ask and the information you don't seek that becomes detrimental to your journey to financial freedom. I'm done. I know we have other amazing panelists tonight that I just want to hear as well, but this is so, so powerful because, wealth is our birthright. It really is who we are and what we have access to, and we have the tools to live truly this life of perpetual freedom in every area of our lives, to include our finances. So thank you to the Economic Development Committee of the mighty NACAC chapter, whoop, whoop, for doing this and making it available to the public, because this is powerful.
Dr.
Thank
Johnson,
you.
before you
Thank
go,
you so much.
there is a question in the chat. They said a lot of people are using debit cards more these days versus cash. What advice would you give to people these days that do not use physical cash? That's their question.
Well, I have another mentor. I have a lot of mentors, and she's the soror, Dr. Lynn Richardson. For example, she said, you can go and never purchase. I'm talking to women now. I know there are men with us as well. But, if you don't have what it costs you to purchase that purse to put inside your purse, don't buy it. Right? So the cash versus debit card, like if I don't have it as discretionary, I don't purchase it. It takes discipline to do that, right? It takes discipline to delay gratification. Do you really need another pair of shoes? Do you really need that purse? Do you really have to do that now? Or can you delay it? And I believe this pandemic has taught us all how to reevaluate our resources and what we do, how we do. So debit card versus cash, I mean, cash is really becoming obsolete, unfortunately. So, my grandmother used to have cash under her mattress. I'm not saying do that, but I'm back now to dropping spare change in my water bottle because, I've gone in stores so many times and they're like, if you don't have the exact change, then we need to round up and all of that. So it would behoove all of us really to stay abreast of what is happening with money in the world. It's not, that's the other thing. It's not just about what is happening in my world with money. What is happening in the world? What is the world view? What is your global view around money? So save your cash, right? If you can, pay for things in cash. Like if you can't pay for it in cash, you probably can't afford it. That's really how I think about it, unless it's a planned purchase and you have a strategy around repaying that. Like one more example, we go to the car dealer sometimes and we're like, I want that car. and this is what I want my payment to be. But we never ask, what is the interest rate? Like stuff like that eats away at your financial freedom, right? If your car note is like $250, but you're paying 18% interest, that's money. That's a money leak. So again, I love this conversation. I'm gonna be quiet because we have other speakers, but I hope I answered the question. I don't spend a lot of money for things that really I can delay. I don't deny myself. You know, I'm strategic with how I spend my money now and what I do and how I treat myself. I think it's important to celebrate and treat yourself, but I'm just really strategic about it.
Wonderful. Vicki, I'm going to move on to Chandra because we could sit with you all day. And I want to thank you for these amazing nuggets that you gave. I know it was helpful to everybody that you provided. Would you please drop those books that you mentioned in chat so that everyone can gather them? I've read quite a few of them. They are wonderful books. I know many of them changed my life and my thinking. And also, I follow Lynn Richardson also on Instagram. So I encourage you guys to do that. She leaves nuggets every day about ways to save money. And she's very real. And she was talking today about having an estate plan. And if you don't have one, the state is going to plan for you. Okay. So definitely follow Lynn Richardson on Instagram. And thank you again. And I am going to turn the rest of this over to Sorority Parks.
Hi, welcome. Good evening, everyone. And before we just start this segment, I just want to say ouch and ouch and ouch to some of the points that Johnson just mentioned. I was like, whoo, she's tipping on my toes right now. So if you had a tiptoe moment, if you had an ouch moment, just go ahead and just type in a chat ouch, or just say, yeah, I won't tell nobody, it's safe here. But definitely thank you for those nuggets. And thank you, Sora Michelle, for the information about our growth mindset and fixed mindset. Already right now, I see my mindset is starting to shift. And if you are in the middle, that is okay, because we have some more powerful information that is coming your way. So I want to take a few minutes to bring up and have what I'm getting ready to call our resident financial coach, money coach, who's always supporting the economic development committee, Mr. James, Henson. And he is the owner of Henson and Associates. That was birthed in 2005. And you know how that was birthed? That was birthed because a co-worker took the time to share with him some personal information about finances, how he can increase his knowledge, his economic status and power. And what was so beautiful about that, he thought it not robbery, but he began to build a life in terms of helping others improve their financial well-being personally, and then in their home lives. So since 2005, he has been educating adults around personal finances, how to improve their overall, lifestyle. And not only that, he is now passionate about youth and money, that he is going into the school systems and working with youth around youth and money so that they can step out the door, out of high school, on this path to economic empowerment. So for a few minutes, I'm just going to allow James Henson to just come share with us just his story about personal finances and what he had to do to kind of shift his mindset in order to be in this place of empowerment, first for himself, because he walked that out himself, and now he's in the position to help others take that same particular journey. So you're going to hear this word all the way through this evening, the journey and the steps that people took. James?
Yes. Thank you so much. Can y'all hear me? We good? All right. Thank you. So I really appreciate, Delta Sigma Theta for allowing me to speak. you know what I'm saying, on behalf of the series. It just gives me pleasure to always be able to speak about my passion, which is money, showing people and educating people on financial literacy. And so when we talk about how I got here in my journey, like she shared, you know, I actually was a engineer. I worked for the CIA as a government contractor, was making great income straight out of college, but nobody ever talked to me about how to make my money work for me. So I was on the left side of the cash flow quadrant as an employee, you know, and so after witnessing a layoff, right, that was really not for me, but it opened my eyes that I realized that there was no such thing as a good job, right? And so I realized that at any given time, they could take that position away from me, take my pay, change my whole life if they chose to. And so when I sat down with the person that it was for, he shared with me about, you know, financial concepts because he wasn't worried. He was straight. He was like, I'll be okay. I was like, really? And he just talked to me about money and changed my whole mindset about money, right? You know, before, just like Sister Johnson was saying, I was living paycheck to paycheck. Even though I was making six figures, I was doing the wrong things with my money because it was like, hey, I'm getting paid every week. You know what I'm saying? I'm paying my bills on time, but I was spending my money. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it got to the point where I was spending my check before I got my check, right? You know what I mean? It wasn't even paycheck to Monday. It was Thursday night because I know it's gonna hit tomorrow, right? Let's be transparent, you know, because again, it's that mindset of, you know, going from a broke college student, you know what I'm saying? I was getting $20 a week as a football athlete. You know what I mean? That was my allowance from my parents because you couldn't work when you're on a scholarship with NCAA. Thank God they changed that rule, and man, it's amazing now. But you know, it was real. You know, like he was paying me freaking $1,400, $1,500 every week. I said, what? This is amazing. I lost my mind. I ain't gonna lie. You know, I went crazy, right? And so when I got educated on money, it just showed me and it opened my eyes to so much. And so I got passionate about teaching other people, adults. But then I realized, I said, well, wow. I mean, if I'm teaching these adults and so many adults don't know this information as well, let's go back to the kids, because let's start with the children, because the children are our future. I would say the children are our now, because they're growing up like crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, boom, you know, my son just turned 18 years old, right? I mean, it just seemed like yesterday he was born. And so ultimately speaking, if we can show them how to have the proper mindset about money, then they're not starting where I started or where we started, which I always say it's all about having a seat at the table as opposed to being under the table, right? You know, when I graduated college, I had student loan debt. I had all these things that I didn't know because why? My parents didn't know. I always share with people there's a difference between knowing what you're doing and doing what you know, right? Most people, when it comes to money, we do what we know. We do what our parents taught us about money, right? Which is take our money, we go to school, get a good education so we can get a good job, right? And then we do what? We take our money and we put it in the bank and then we pay our bills. But ultimately, when you start to, you know, read books and like Sister Johnson talked about, you know, changing your mindset and your view about money, you get properly educated about money, and now you start to learn and really understand the rules of the money game and understand how you can really build wealth. Because of the fact that true wealth really starts in the mind. It starts in your mind, right? What you think about, you bring about. You know, one of the things when you look at about mindset, about money, you know, I always tell people, where are your thoughts taking you, right? You know, and life and death lie in your tongue. And so a lot of times people will say, you know, I'm broke. And I always tell my clients, you are not allowed to say that. You are not allowed to say you're broke. You can say, I don't have it right now, but you cannot say I'm broke, because subconsciously you are telling yourself that you don't keep money. And so I always tell people, I said, when you say that, you ever find out that you can't keep money? They're like, yeah, it seems like when I don't know where it goes. I said, because you're saying I'm broke. So when you get money, your subconscious says you ain't supposed to have that. So you go spend it, right? You go spend it. Your subconscious controls everything. And so that's why I always tell people, your words have power and you have to be careful about what you speak into the air, right? I always say, speak what you seek until you see what you speak. You understand what I'm saying? And it is power that comes with that. And so, you know, ultimately, when I look at how I started to look at money, how I started to now implement, because it's all about education and implementation. Sister Johnson talked about it. She said, you know, knowledge is not power, applied knowledge is power. So once you get educated, right, you have to now implement a plan, right, and move in that direction. You can't just say, okay, I read this and then sit back. No, you have to now put it into action so that it can manifest in your life. And so I started to view money different, right? I started to view money as a tool, okay? See, most people view money as, you know, when we come into money, it's like, I always say, broke is a state. It's basically a mindset. Broke is a mindset. Poor is a state of being. Wealth is a mindset. Wealth is a mindset. Rich is a state of being. Right. So when you look at somebody that's poor and has a broke mentality, they view money as what? Hey, I'm gonna look good, right? I'm gonna go out here and buy these clothes, these shoes, all these type things. But wealthy people view money as a tool. Money is supposed to what? Make you money. Right? It's supposed to invest. You're supposed to have it grow, right? We talked about growth mindset, fixed mindset, right? It's supposed to grow over time. Okay. It's not supposed to just be the same exact thing, right? It's not supposed to stay there. You're supposed to let your money work for you so that now you can move to that right side of the equation, which is the investor side. Okay. If you choose not to go into the business side, you can go straight to the investor side. So you can go from employed to an investor. So now you're living off of your money. Okay. And so when we talk about that journey, you know, that's one of the things that I started to look at. I started to look at where my money was going, right? And how I could now make my money work for me. How can I now control this dollar? That's why I always say I'm a money coach. I'm not a financial advisor, because when people hear financial advisor, they think you have to come with all this money. I said, no, I'm a money coach. If you have a dollar, I can coach you on that dollar, right? You have a dollar in your pocket, we can talk about it, right? And you can now take control of your mind to control the money in your pocket instead of letting your money control you, right? So many times people let their money control them. Ooh, I got paid this weekend. Let's go to happy hour. Let's go shopping. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Instead of saying, okay, I got paid. Boom, let me go ahead and invest the 20% automatically. You know, let me go ahead and give my 10% to charity. Boom, and then, you know, let me live off the rest, right? Or however you want to break it down. But have that automatically set. So it's boom. It's like I always tell people it's that crock pot moment. It's set it and forget, like the Showtime grill. It's automatic because your brain has now taken in that cycle of how we process money, how that money now works for us instead of letting the money control me. And so, you know, I just really get excited about it, about, you know, mindset, because again, like I always tell people, true wealth starts in the mind. And you have to think about it. You know what I'm saying? You have to, you know, I really do. I teach my kids about it. You know, it's very funny because I've been telling my kids about, you know, the rule of the 72 and all this type of stuff, and they got jobs now. And it's funny because when I talk about investing, right, I'm like, hey, we can invest in these stocks and things like that. My son comes in and he's like, invest? I'm like, yeah, like we've been doing. Like, you know, I said, now you can invest. And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll invest some money, right? But I'm thinking he's gonna put like 50% of his check. He was like, I thought you said we'd do like 20%. I was like, but you don't have any bills, right? Why not max out? You know, so it's just all those things of trying to get them to understand, man, don't let that money control you, right? It's, you know, I know you want the games and the shoes and all that. He's got a little car, he likes to put his money in his car and stuff, but understanding that money, if you take care of money now, one day down the road, money will take care of you. And you've got to have that mindset that, hey, I'm doing this now. I'm a little uncomfortable now to be comfortable later. Like Sister Johnson said, she said she plans out her trips, right? I'm not saying I got to go without, but plan it out. You know, just transparency moment. I was out shopping today, right? And it was so funny. I knew what I was going in the store to get, right? But you know, I love Macy's. I'm not gonna lie, right? But they had a sale, okay? But I said, you're not here for that, okay? That's not what you came here for. Stay focused, right? It was hard. I circled, you know, and tried to talk myself into it, like, but you know, you could use it. It's on sale. You know, last time you were in here was this much, and I was like, you ain't come here for that. You know what I'm saying? But that's because where I am now, I applaud myself. I got out of there, right, and I went with what I was supposed to get. But that's growth, because why? It's the mindset of, hey, that money is supposed to go to this, right? Now, even though there was a surplus of money, it wasn't like I was tied to it, but I did not want to say, hey, you can go ahead and do this, because when you start to get in that mindset, it's like, boom. So I planned it out. You know what I'm saying? And say, do I really need it? Came home, looked in the closet. I really didn't need it. But you know what I'm saying? It's those moments that most people will take advantage and just jump at it, spend that money. And you know what I'm saying? For that one little, I call it's like an endorphin boost. Like it's like, woo, I got it. And then now what? You know what I'm saying? We wear it and then that's over. So I'll stop there because I can talk all day about
Wow.
money and mindset. I'm gonna kick it back to you, Chandra, and go
Yes,
from there.
thank you, James, for sharing a whole bunch of knowledge in terms of how your process of changing your mindset and what everyone has come back with saying, along with changing their mindset. Then they begin to talk about the habits that they begin to take. And so this is actually a pretty good transition, because I'm going to bring up now, Coach David, so we can put all this together. But one of the things, you change your mindset. And then the next phase is that our habits begin to start to follow our thoughts and what we're thinking and what we're saying. So now we can actually begin to do what it is, as you mentioned earlier, James, what we see in our minds. And I'm probably going to let Coach David, mention a book that he has had some of his team read, but Atomic Habits. And one of the things that, James has mentioned is that once you begin to change your mindset and begin to do that discipline of your habits, it becomes something that is, and just hear me out, because this it helped me out, that a habit is actually a routine or practice performed regularly. So it's not one day, it's not 1 hour or once a year, but if it's something that's becoming a habit that you want to change, it is something that is done and performed on a regular basis. So I'm actually going to bring up our next speaker for a few minutes, Coach David. As many of us know, he is the owner of Live Now, Fitness, and so he is known as the Health Depth Coach, and that he's helping people get their lives together physically, and I want to say emotionally, and oftentimes that ties into how we show up in our financial lives, because there is a correlation, there is a connection between mental and money health. And so this is one of the unique things that we have these courageous conversations, that we're able to view economic empowerment from a holistic perspective. So Coach David, feel free. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Thank you, Chandra. Thank you, Laura, Michelle. Thank you, Delta Sigma Theta, for having me. Vicky, James, thank y'all for starting this thing off. Y'all know I'm big on energy. I'm big on energy. If I could see all of y'all, I'd make all of y'all stand up right now, because y'all been sitting down too long. And yeah, go ahead and stand up, Vicky. Go ahead and stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Move your body around. We've been sitting down too long. I've been standing up the entire time. All right, so we get that health lesson out of the way first. All right, so check it out. Vicky's story, James' story, like, I don't think anything happens by accident. We weren't brought here by accident. We were brought here because we are operating on the same beam energetically. Vicky talked about being broke. James talked about being broke. And now I'm going to talk about being broke as well. I started my business 15 years ago. 2005, 2006. And I came from the government contracting world. I was a contractor. I was making good money, comfortable money. I didn't have any worries. I had my 401k, all that good stuff. But I got, fitness found me. I fell in love with it. I started training folks on the side, and I eventually turned into a business. And then, the corporate side, it just wasn't where my love was anymore. And I was tired of someone telling me when I was going to make more money. So I said, let me go out here and let me do this thing on my own. But there was a mistake. I didn't know anything about business. I knew how to coach people. I knew how to inspire people around health and wellness. I'm super at that. That's my superpower. But business, I just kind of thought I'd figure it out. It can't be that hard. Well, it is that hard when you're trying to figure it out on your own. So I was broke. Long story short, I had a nice lump sum of money coming out. I was good. But then, I didn't know anything about leads and conversions and all of that stuff. And then what happens is, over time, you start to mismanage your money. And what happened to me was I mismanaged my money, and then I end up having to rob Peter to pay Paul. Like, I put my my rent for my facility on my credit cards, month after month after month after month. And then it was just like, as Vicky said, getting around the right people. That was what happened. I went to a conference, I went to a fitness conference, and they had a financial seminar. And I said, let me sign up for this. This is what I need the most. And I signed up for that financial seminar, and they said, get around the right people. You need an accountant, you need a bookkeeper, you need a business coach. I went out into the hallway and I hired all of those that day. I hired all of those that day. I paid for them on my credit cards, but what they gave me the lessons. Like, I didn't have to just run through the potholes on my own anymore. I could avoid the potholes with them. And as I learned more, as I read more, as Vicky and James said, as I read more, then I upgraded my coaches. I changed my coaches. They weren't giving me what I needed. So I upgraded my coaches. And that started to change. And I was able to get my finances in order. I was able to start saving and investing again. But it all started with that financial seminar. It started there, and it started with me making the decision and say, hey, I got to change my mindset around money. Because just like Vicky, my parents, we never talked about money. We never talked about money. I'm an only child. I pretty much got what I wanted, but we never talked about money ever, like, other than broke. Somebody was always saying, I'm broke, don't ask me for no money. We can't get that. Or, yeah, you can get that. But we didn't talk about the dynamics of money and how to use it for your benefit. So that's what it is with money, with me. That's where I am. But what I do every day, I wanted to read you all something, and I'm going to put them in the chat too. So I'm big on mindset. I'm huge on mindset. And I believe that it begins the moment you wake up. You set the stage for how your mindset is going to be the moment you wake up. So if you're checking your phone, like if you're checking in with other people, before you check in with yourself, you've already messed up. You should be checking in with yourself. So if that's prayer, if that's meditation, if that's reading something, if that's affirmations, which I do them all. I get out of bed, I go onto the floor, I meditate. That helps get my mindset right. Then I come in, I read my affirmations, I read a meditation from Ayanna Van Zant's book. And then what I do is I go for my morning walk. And that's another meditation for me. And that sets my day off. So if at all possible, my first hour and a half to 3 hours, depending on how much time I have, is for me. It's for me. And that's what we don't do enough of. We don't put ourselves first. We start responding to everybody else in the world. So if we do that, like, yeah, money's going to be kind of difficult along with our health. It's going to be difficult. So put yourself first. All right. So I want to read you my healthy and wealthy me affirmations. All right. I read these every single day, and I read them aloud, and I read them with energy, because if you don't bring the energy, your body's not going to believe you. Your body's not going to believe you. You can create whatever you want to create. As they said, your imagination, I think Einstein said, imagination encircles the world. It encircles the world. Imagination is everything. And it begins with like the energy. Like, we have to just be hyped about being healthy and being wealthy. It's not a, no, that doesn't do it. We have to get hyped about it. All right. So my healthy and wealthy me affirmations. I radiate health, wealth, abundance, and prosperity. That's number one. Number two, every day I am becoming richer in health and wealth. Number three, health and wealth comes to me easily and effortlessly. Number four, my actions create constant health, wealth, prosperity, and abundance. I am aligned with the energy of health, wealth, and abundance. I am a magnet for health and wealth. My health and wealth shines from within me. And then this last one, I read like 3 times, and then I just say it all day. My health and wealth are forever increasing as I give more of myself in service to the world, because I believe that's what we're here for. That's what James is here for. That's what Vicky is here for. We're here. All of us are here. Everybody on this call, that's what we're here for. We're here to support and help one another, right? So let me read that one again. My health and wealth are forever increasing as I give more of myself in service to the world. All right. So I'm going to put those in the chat for y'all so y'all can grab those. And then recommending books. You already talked about the Atomic Habits. Other books that have helped my growth, my health, and my financial mindset, because all of these books, they talk about your health and your wealth. You can't separate the two. Every CEO will tell you, like, it wasn't until I started putting my health first that everything else took off, everything come together. Like, you have to put your health first. So books, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, The 50th Law, 50 Cent and Robert Greene, Motivation Manifesto. I'll put these in the chat too. Motivation Manifesto, Brendan Burchard, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Those are books that have definitely upgraded my energy, my mindset around health and wealth. All right, as the first two speakers said, I could talk about this all day long. I was hyped that you all let me come on this mindset, because mindset is everything, y'all. And we have to get energetic about it. Right, Renee? I see you smiling, Renee. We got to get energetic about our health and wealth. All right? Thank you. I'm good.
Wow, wow, wow. Yes, Coach David, thank you for the energy. Yes, cool. Yes, we are shaking. We're giving a thumbs up. We're giving a thumbs up to everybody this evening. If you were not excited about your financial freedom journey, if you were not excited about your health journey, I don't know about you, but I am extremely excited about everything that has been shared, the simple steps, the practicality that we can easily implement. Guess what? We can easily implement everything that was said, not next year, not even tomorrow, but literally when we get ready to transition off this call. And and I won't even say off this call, I can say literally, like right now, in this moment in time, we can easily implement one thing that each person has said. But before we do that, I just want to take the time with our audience. Does anyone have any questions for any of our speakers that have spoken this evening? If you do, drop it in the chat. If there's a question, we do. I'm looking at my chair, Laura. I'm looking at my the co-chair, Michelle. We have a good 5 or 10 minutes that we can just have some what I like to call money talk with NACAC. Money and health talk with NACAC. So we can have a little chat for a few minutes. Drop your questions. Because I know there's some questions that people would like to share, or if there's even a comment that you want to share with us, feel free. We have someone that's in the chat. If you're on Facebook, feel free to drop a comment in chat. We're going to get those questions, but
I'd like to challenge our participants to maybe put in chat or share what was one takeaway for you tonight that you're going to use to make a change. What are you going to do differently based on what you heard tonight? If one or two people or a few people would be willing to come off mic and tell us, we'd appreciate it, or put it in chat. We'll talk about it.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Raina, and I was invited by Giselle Washington, and I've really enjoyed being here. I've just heard so many wonderful nuggets, and I appreciate each of the speakers. There are a couple of takeaways. I actually just put one in the chat, and then I had another one. The theme that I kept hearing run through each of the speakers was, or the thing that I took away from each of the speakers was just to be one, intentional about your thoughts and your actions. Each one of them had to intentionally decide to make a change and to do some things differently before action could take place. Also having a vision about your future and where you want to go is so important. You know, nothing happens without some pre-thought, you know. And I find myself at this point in life, as I get ready to go into retirement in a couple of years, thinking about the next step, because I've always had a career and I've always made a comfortable living. But the idea and the thought of moving into the future and wondering, where's my source of income going to come from other than, you know, your retirement? It's got me in a different mindset and wondering, okay, what's next? How am I going to have that additional income? Have I saved enough? What do I need to do next? So I found myself in a different place, or I find myself in a different place and in a different thought process about money now, because money is getting ready to look a little different, you know? Right. So I like creating vision boards, and I do it annually, sometimes by myself, sometimes with friends. And I've started putting money on my vision board just in various ways. Saving. I started saving after I intentionally put it on my vision board and what I wanted to do. I want to save for my daughter's college. I want to save for these things. I had to visually and intentionally put it in front of me. And after I did that, I noticed that monthly, I go to her account and I place money in, but I had to say the words. I had to have the thought. I had to speak it, put it into action, put it into the atmosphere before I moved out on it. So it's things like that. So I'm rambling, but like I said, for me, it's about, first of all, having the vision. What do I want in the future? Where do I see myself going? What do I need? And how am I going to make that happen? How am I going to manifest that? What steps do I need to put in place in order to get there? And then I need to act on it.
Absolutely. I think that, thank you so much for sharing. That is so true. And that's really the whole concept of, you know, the concept of your future self, right? Envisioning what that future could look like or what you want it to look like. And then what action steps can you put in place to get there? So thank you for sharing that. I saw that we had a hand, Tanya Powell, my other line sister, has a question or comment.
Thank you, Michelle, and everyone that spoke tonight, Vicki, all of the other speakers. This was so empowering, so uplifting. I'm super excited. I get so excited when we talk about wealth building, and I want this to reverberate and for this message to get out to as many as we possibly can get it out to. In terms of the nuggets from this, that the takeaways that I want to start reincorporating, because, you know, wealth building and money management is just top priority for me. I think about it all the time. And I want to get back to reading more. So thank you for all of the books that were shared or articles or whatever that was shared in the chat. I was taking little pictures of what was in the chat box, because I've really kind of gotten away. I read some, you know, here and there articles, but I need to get back to reading. So thank you for that, because it's important, because things change, as we know, over time. And so we need to, you know, keep building. I remember years ago, you know, it was all about like mutual funds. Now it's FTEs, you know, we need to start talking about the different new vehicles that come up that are available to all of us for investing and for wealth building. And then the other thing is Vicki's comment about the Council of Advisors. You know, it's so important for us to have those people around you who can speak to you, whether it's a Lynn Richardson through, you know, her messaging on Instagram or wherever you're getting it from, or if it's me and my line sisters, Michelle and Vicky, getting together to talk, or Miriam Nassau's in the chapter to talk about, wealth building. So that was another key point too, because I think, and this goes back to something that all of the speakers talked about, I believe, that, the generation that we grew up in, our parents didn't really talk to us about money like that. I have two 20-somethings right behind me that also listen into this program. We talk about money all the time. We talk about investing, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about all these different, areas. That wasn't the topic around our dinner table when I was growing up. It was more the traditional, make your money, pay your bills, save your money, do some investing, but not like really the way we talk about it. So those were my takeaways. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward to sharing this information with others.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I can relate to the reading more because I've read for many years, many of those books that Vicky referenced. And then like you, I kind of, got away from it. So I was really glad when we were talking about this subject, and I grabbed the mindset book that I already had on my shelf. And I feel like I have a pretty good handle of mindset, but every time I read something, you always get something new, to your point. So it's important to stay on top of things and just kind of reset periodically.
And thank you for what you shared on mindset from the very beginning of the program. Just excellent, excellent. I want to read more about that.
Thank you. So there's actually, I see a few more hands. So I want to call the names that I see. So I see Angel and I see Tony. So Angel, if you could go first.
Hi. Oh, I don't know if my camera is on. Can you hear me? Oh,
yes, I can hear.
Okay. Hi. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. The information was really great. I just wanted to share what I took away from it. I would have to say discipline, perseverance, self-control, and intentional with having a purpose behind what you're doing. I just feel like I heard that a lot. And that was a great takeaway. I feel like if you're, from what I'm gathering, having discipline over what you're doing, having intentional purpose behind what you're doing, everything ties together. The way that you're spending, the way that you're thinking, the way that you're acting mentally, whether if you're going out and getting something or if it's just all in your mind. Like you said, don't spend more than what you have. If you don't have it, you can't spend it. Don't put yourself in a hole. Having just self-control, all of those things tied together, and it really made sense. And thank you guys for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing that information. Definitely be intentional, purpose about what we're doing. Thank you. Thank you. Tony.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This has been a really good session. Thank you to all the panelists for all the information and the inspiration. I think the biggest takeaway for me was something that Dr. Johnson said. She said, start filling your mind with empowering information. And that really stood out to me because I am also in the process of reading Atomic Habits. And there is a chapter talking about your environment and how that is integral to developing healthy habits, and how important it is to shape the environment around you, the things that you see, the things that you're listening to, and all of that to create a healthy mindset and healthy habits. So that really stood out to me. And yeah, that was the biggest thing for me. So thank you.
Wow, thank you. Definitely, once you're able to fill yourself up, and then it spreads out to your environment. So it's changing you so you can change your environment. Very powerful. There's also another person, please forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong, but Mayani Williams, you had your hand up.
Yes, Miani Williams. Good evening. Thank you again to all of the speakers. This has been like my favorite thing to do on Wednesdays, is to listen to all of you give us your advice and your experiences. For me tonight, the key takeaway is really to just live within my means and not to compare my financial journey to everyone around me or those in my circle. I think that it's really easy to feel like you may not be progressing at the same rate as those around you, whether it's with your job or your business ventures or anything like that. But as others have already said, speaking positively to yourself and actually having goals and writing them down and making a plan for anything that you're doing really will make the difference in your results and your financial wealth. So hearing that and just reiterating it to myself really was helpful and empowering tonight. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing. Does anyone else would like to share everything before we have a couple of call to action? And we probably would give you just a sneak peek, just a little taste of what's coming up next for our next workshop. Planning for Your Future Self Part 2 in 2020 with setting our financial goals. So that is coming up. Does anyone else have anything else they would like to share before we get ready just to share a few more items?
So Chandra, there was
Yes.
a question in the chat. They asked what's a great tip to get back on track or a motivation tip. So I'm not sure if they had heard the affirmations at that point, but that came from Jackie.
Okay, so definitely if David or James would like to answer that in terms of what is a great tip to get ourselves back on track.
So I would first say literally you cannot change what you don't confront. So definitely look at where you are, see what needs to take place. Like you can understand your weakness. I always say that if you can't, like I knew for me, I was spending too much money. I didn't know how much it was. But that's one of the things that I had to look at. And so to get back on track, I would really say, start with the mindset of reading something. That's number one, what you're putting in your mind, and then get with a professional. You know what I'm saying? Get with somebody to dive in on, you know what I'm saying, your finances and things of that nature to put you on track, to get you a roadmap so that you can follow it. You know what I'm saying? If you're going in the wrong direction, you always want to stop, turn around, go the other way. So get with somebody that can get you a roadmap to get you in the right direction, going in the right direction, so that you can be, as successful as you want to be.
To add on to that, I would say motivation is cool, but as everyone has said, discipline is where the power is. So I would commit to doing just one little thing, like Vicky talked about, putting just the change in her jar every single day. So I forget the name to ask that question. So just committing to one thing that you can do every single day instead of trying to take on everything at once, because then that's when we get thrown off track and we don't do anything. So commit to doing one thing and doing it with discipline every single day, and create some sort of accountability system for it. Don't just have it in your head, just like you have to write in your check ledger. Have an accountability around your mindset, something that you have to check off every single day, whether you're writing in a journal, hey, I put my money in the book, because then after a while, it's going to be a muscle and it's going to want that. It's going to want that exercise.
Thank you, David, and thank you, James. Is there anything else before we get ready to go into our wrap up? If there isn't anything else, feel free to continue to make comments in the chat. But guess what? This is the Economic Development Team. So we have a call to action for everyone this evening. So we're going to do a small, when I say just a small, and it kind of fits into what David said, is that we would like everyone just to take one thing that they would commit to doing every day around their mindset, whether that be reading more or reading 10 pages a day, whether that, I want to take the time to put myself first, if I want to track my spending, but what is one thing that you will commit to over the next couple of weeks? And when we come back together in January, we would like you just to share how that process went and how you are feeling as you are stretching your mindset. So just think of one thing. It could be the same thing that you put in the chat, your takeaway, and what you're going to, guess what, put into practice now. And for those individuals who decide to come back, you will definitely, maybe 1 or 2 people will like to hear out, and there may be a little surprise come January. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Masora, our chair, Laura Gregory, just for her to give some closing remarks and just to give you a sneak peek of what's coming up next. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much to everyone. Thank you, Sorashandra, for all that you have done. To our panelists, Sora Vicky Johnson, James Henson, Coach David, we appreciate you. To my committee chair, Michelle Fuller, thank you so much. My heart goes out to you all for putting this together and making sure that we're feeding everybody with everything that they need in regards to their financial health and wealth. I just have one major takeaway that hit me right in the stomach. Speak what you seek until you see what you speak. Now that's power, because again, it's all about the mindset and what we want to manifest in our future. So that's my takeaway. That's something that I'm putting on my mirror when I wake up, saying my new affirmations, Coach David, which I appreciate. This was powerful, and I'm full and I'm grateful. And I say thank you to all who attended as well. Our next Wealth Wednesday workshop is January 12th, where we're going for round 2, part 2, all about, planning for your future self. And we're going to be talking about goal setting. Okay. Because now it's time for us to literally take some steps to plan some goals. We're asking everyone to also please complete the survey. The link is on in the chat as well as on Facebook Live. We also have information on our website. Please go visit the economic development page on our NACAC website. All the content is there from our previous workshops as well as this workshop. It will be uploaded. You can also fill out the survey on our website and find some nice resources in the community that will help you with your financial endeavors. So again, in the midst of this holiday season, we say happy holidays to you all. And again, thank you for joining us for this Wealth Wednesday workshop. And we look forward to seeing you soon in January, and have a happy and blessed new year. Thank you again to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.